Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Profit podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Profit.
Hey, Bucketlisters. You can see I'm in a new location. This week, I'm in Las Vegas. I tried to set it up so you could see out the window, but the lights are so bright out there that I was just a black shadow, and I could not turn on enough lights in this room that would not be the case. So, I'm sorry. I'm looking out the window. I can see Treasure Island. I can see the Sphere. I can see all sorts of landmarks. But you can't. You'll have to use your imagination. So what comes to your mind when you think of Vegas? Neon, vice, fun? We came here for friends, food, and a few shows. What I didn't plan on was the rush of emotions that hit me very shortly after arriving. Vegas stirs up everything: joy and sadness, pride, vulnerability, awe, and disgust, often in the same breath. Now, from my hotel room up here, all I see is sparkle. Clean, safe, sanitized. But as soon as I step outside, I can't ignore the realities. Now, at first, it is easy to say, oh, that's just Vegas. But is it? It's really life amplified, life magnified. Take that dial and turn it up to 11. Vegas isn't an anomaly. It's ourselves magnified in a very strange way. Many years ago, I attended a training where all the participants had a 360-degree evaluation of ourselves. Now, there was a lot of homework before that, collecting input from people in our lives and various aspects of our lives. And then the facilitator delivered the news to us during our weekend retreat. Now, before he would give us our evaluations, he wanted to assure us that all of the positives weren't positive and all the negatives weren't negative. He said, your greatest strengths are also your greatest weaknesses. The brightest light always casts the darkest shadow. Think about that. Whenever there's a bright light, everything behind an object is a shadow. That stuck with me. And here in Vegas, that contrast is impossible to miss. So I find myself asking, how do we live in a world where there's pain and suffering and still enjoy what is wonderful and good? A place where the bright lights can cast some very dark shadows. Welcome to another episode of The Imperfect Prophet. I'm your host, Wonder Wendy. I've got my water. Got to stay hydrated in the desert. But today, we're going to talk about contradictions and how we navigate them. As you probably know, I love to walk. Walking sets your pace. You can hurry or you can slow down and notice the architecture, the food smells drifting by, or the way people carry themselves. You hear the soundtrack of the world around you. Yes, sometimes take those headphones or earbuds out and listen to the world around you. Have you ever seen a movie without a soundtrack? If you have yourself plugged in, you're not hearing the soundtrack of the world around you, and you're missing out. But walking the strip, that's something else. I mean, there are bells and chirps and slot machines, music spilling out every doorway, street performers, missionaries offering salvation, someone else pressing a card for a phone sex hotline into your hand, someone else yelling after you because they want to sell you skin cream, or a panhandler asking for a handout, bachelor parties squeaking for selfies with those shirtless men in front of some of the casinos. It's sensory overload. Sometimes I need blinders just to keep moving. And yet, where else can you go from the pyramids to New York City, the Casbah, the Eiffel Tower, the Roman Forum, and the canals of Venice, all within a couple miles? It's like a giant World's Fair that never ends, magical and maybe a bit terrifying. I've been listening to the novels of Michael Connelly and the Bosch novels. You may know him from The Lincoln Lawyer. He was also a poker buddy for Castle for many years. Michael Connelly sends a lot of stories to Las Vegas. And in one book, he refers to it as a city built on desire. He was right. And yet there's something kind of dark in that foundation. And that was his observation as well. I don't gamble. In general, I drink in moderation. I come for the shows, the food, there's some fabulous dining, and the glitz. But plenty of people come here chasing that old promise. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Or does it? Do you take a little bit of that darkness home with you, or a little bit of that light home with you? What does this tell us about our human condition, and what should we be taking home with us? On my first day, as I was walking down the street, we said, I like to walk down the street, I saw an image I can't shake. It was a woman swaying slowly as she moved down the sidewalk, hugging herself in that childlike way that children do. You know, they wrap their arms and kind of sway in self-comfort. Her hair was short and spiky, reasonably well maintained, which told me she'd had some grooming not too long ago. But she only wore one knee-high boot. The other foot was bare. The boot's 2-inch block heel giving her a strange, uneven limp. She wasn't filthy. She wasn't loud or disruptive, just grungy, fragile, and hauntingly childlike. And my mind keeps playing this image over and over in my mind. What's her story? Did she experience some traumatic loss? Is there mental illness involved? Maybe some of both. That's Vegas, right under the bright lights flashing feet above our head, music blaring. There's someone who looks broken, and she's not alone. She just happened to be one that really caught my imagination and my heart. Like I said, it's not Vegas, though. It's really us. It's a reflection of part of our humanity. Now, we all polish an image while hiding struggles. The real work is learning how to accept both the bright light and the shadow, to give ourselves grace for our own shadows, and to remember that perfect person we envy is likely carrying something too. It looks pretty heavy, huh? Now you know why I was overwhelmed with emotion pretty much right after we arrived. And then, of course, there's the gambling. Now, I've never been bitten by that bug. I do remember how I would enjoy the first times I came here, those one-armed bandits, drop in a coin, pull the lever, wait. Oh, and how rewarding was it when those pictures matched up and suddenly the change started to go ding 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 ding, filling the tray. It was a joyful cacophony. Back then, I had a system, a roll of quarters in my right pocket. Winnings went into my left pocket. When the right pocket was empty, I was done. $20 of entertainment. Anything left in the left pocket? Well, that was a jackpot, if there was anything left. Life is like that. We take a risk, we wait. And in that waiting, we dream. Sometimes it's not even about winning. It's about the fantasy. Like the other night at the Diamondbacks game, okay, last week, but I bought a 50-50 raffle ticket. I don't do that at every game. But the jackpot had gotten kind of big. And from the moment it was in my hand, we were planning how to spend whatever remained of that $100,000 after taxes. What charities would we support? What splurges would we allow? What dreams would we choose? Would our trip to Vegas be any different if we suddenly had a few extra $1,000 bouncing around in our pocket? Upgrade our room? Real splurge on dinner? Would we try high-value casino again? I don't know. But we fantasized about it, and it was fun. You know, at the end of the game, I almost didn't want to check the number against my list of numbers. Because the moment we did, I knew that fantasy would end. Well, at least I was reasonably certain I wasn't going to win, and that fantasy would end. That was another $20 well spent for a few hours of wonder-filled imagining. What do you do that allows you to fantasize and dream bigger? And then when you don't win the 20,000 or 100,000 or whatever it might be, what parts of those dreams do you want to realize in a different way, other than praying for divine intervention? But in the casinos here, I don't see that dream. I don't see that happiness. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about a casino, I imagine James Bond. You know, tuxedos, champagne, laughter, a glittering world of sophistication and risk. But what I see when I walk through the casinos here are people sitting silently, staring blankly at machines, automatons, pressing buttons, cradling their cards, not smiling, not laughing, rarely even talking. And it makes me wonder, when did it stop being fun? Yes, we all do things we don't enjoy, like, scrubbing the toilet. That needs to happen once in a while, right? But entertainment, escape, that's supposed to bring joy. And here's another lesson to that light and shadow. The thrill of the risk, the joy of possibility, and the shadow of obsession and compulsion. You can't have one without the other. And yet you need to work towards the light and avoid that shadow in this case. Now, whether or not you're a gambler, the real question I want you to ask yourself is, what are you willing to bet on yourself? Maybe not literally gambling at a casino so that you can potentially win more money. But what are you willing to risk for your heart and your well-being to have an opportunity at growth? Remember, if you don't change something, nothing's going to change. We talked about change last week. Okay, we're going to talk about risk. Let's talk about burlesque, a very popular form of entertainment here in the City of Lights. No, that's Paris. Okay, Sin City. We saw Dita Von Teese the other night. She's 53 years young, and her show was spectacular. Now, people have some pretty polarizing opinions about this form of entertainment. I have a unique perspective. I've emceed a couple of burlesque shows in my past. In my 40s. No, it was in my 50s. Wow. No, it was in my 50s, but it was a while ago. Now, my husband calls burlesque performers strippers. And yes, they do remove their clothing, but what they do is so much more. There was eroticism, yes. And at times, performers wore little more than a thong, pasties, and a smile. But they weren't all young and thin. So many types of bodies, all beautiful. What I witnessed was power. Dancers, men and women, embracing their personal form, moving with pride, owning the stage. It is kind of ironic, though, that their costumes, the ones they take off, are fabulously detailed and beautifully designed. Burlesque is an art. It's about knowing your best angles, striking a pose, and building anticipation. These aren't rushed movements. They are carefully planned. Believe it or not, we could all learn from that. I can almost hear you thinking right now, what does she mean I can learn from a burlesque dancer? Does she want me to take off my clothes? Well, you know what? If you want to make taking off your clothes fun, go for it. Choose an appropriate time and place. And if you have a receptive audience you want to do it for, that is your own business. But even if you don't plan on taking off your clothes for someone else, find an outfit that makes you feel amazing. We've talked about it. Get it tailored to you. Pick a color that enhances your skin tone. Get a color analysis if you don't know what color that is. Stand tall and pose in the mirror before you leave the house. I'm not kidding. Practice what postures make your outfit look its best. A slight tip of the shoulder, a slight turn of the hips, 1 foot forward can often make you look a little bit sharper. Haven't you ever noticed that 9 times out of 10, I have 1 foot forward in my photographs when you see me from head to toe? It's a pose that works for me. Oh, and don't forget to smile at that person in the mirror. If you don't love that person, who else will? So learn to love yourself first. Oh, and here's a magic trick. Try the superhero stance. Legs slightly apart, hands on your hips. Science says it makes you feel more powerful. So channel your inner superhero and let it come on out. Confidence, like burlesque, is an art, and it isn't natural or innate for most of us. You need to practice. So practice being confident, because what's wrong with being confident? Now, if you do visit Vegas, please get off the strip before you decide what you think of this city. A few miles away, I don't even know which way we were going. I was following the GPS. Thank God for GPS. We visited a museum and learned more about the area's history. There was a great exhibit. It was titled From Fossils to Follies. Believe it or not, long before neon, long before casinos, this valley was an oasis. There were springs here. So the native peoples would include this valley in their migratory patterns because there was the water they needed to survive. And that's part of the reason that when the railroads were built through here, the European settlers then put in a village here because they had the water they needed. Vegas wasn't always an illusion. At its core, it was about survival, about water, the desert, and the community. Now, while we were out on the edge of town, we decided maybe we should eat somewhere other than the Strip. And we found a little place called Capo's Speakeasy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Away from the neon, it was an unexpected pleasure. You ring a bell. Ziggy greets you with gruff charm. What's your name? Once escorted in, there's a crooner channeling Frankie and Dean. His moves were so precise that at first I actually thought he was an amazing animatronic figure. It wasn't until he reached for his water that I turned and went, my husband and went, oh my God, he's real. And then he started to talk to us, and I was quite certain this was not an animatronic figure. Better than anything I've ever seen before, but whatever. He was under this glowing light, kind of gave him a pasty facial expression. He didn't quite look real, and his voice was so amazing. I could have believed it was a recording of Frankie or Dean. And then There was our server, Vixen. If you get her, you're in luck. She's a charmer. Not over the top, not a cigarette girl from the 1950s. She's a little bit rough around the edges, but she was charming and delightful. Oh, and the food was amazing. She said we should try the meatballs. We did. They're huge. Share them. Even at that, we didn't finish them. I ate the rest the next day. And as we ordered our second course, I said, if it tastes as good as those meatballs did, I'm eating a few bites and then putting the rest in the container for another day because I want to have room for dessert. And that's exactly what happened. My food was amazing. So I ate just enough that I could feel I'd enjoyed it and had the rest put in a box. And then I ordered some tiramisu. Guess what? Didn't finish that either. That was breakfast the next day. Kappa's felt like an antidote to the Strip. No billboards, no flashing slots, just velvet booths and people leaning in to actually hear each other. It reminded me that sometimes the best experiences aren't center stage. They're tucked away, waiting for us to step off the main drag and say yes to delight. To indulgence? Yeah, it was a lot of food, but I didn't overdo it. Brought some back for another day. And to savoring. What wonderful flavors. So I've learned a lot here in Vegas about myself, maybe a little bit about our world, and I want you to ask those same questions. Vegas is a city of extremes, but then again, so is life. Spectacle and substance, illusion and authenticity, risk and reward. This lesson isn't about Las Vegas. It's about us, about choosing every day. What stage will you stand on? What bets will you make? What hidden joys will you allow yourself to savor? And maybe most important, what are your strengths, the bright lights, and what are the shadows behind them that might need some work? Thanks for joining me here in Las Vegas for another episode of The Imperfect Prophet. I'm Wendy, inviting you to live a wonderful, messy, vibrant, unapologetic life, but be your best self. And now I've got a decision to make. Another cocktail or a refreshing glass of water? Maybe both. Talk to you next week. Until then, I look forward to hearing from you.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation, ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends, join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.